Let us continue with Chapter 2. A pall of smoke drifted over a narrow path across the slope, and here they heard someone approaching and chanting a deep, melancholy voice. "Are your eyes losing their redness?" boomed the voice. "Has the snap gone out of your tail? Nature's remedies and restoratives sold here. Love potions and magic charms." "Him and his magic charms," said Ralphie. "If the boss didn't think I'd bring bad luck, I'd charm him." "Dreams interpreted," continued the chant. "Fortunes told, territories surveyed, weddings performed, moderate fees." Black against the luminous smoke, an odd and slowly hopping shape appeared. Passing alternately through a darkness and light as the flames below it rose and fell, it came steadily up the path and, drawing closer, revealed itself to be a large bullfrog who wore an old and tattered woolen glove against the winter cold. His bulging eyes looked out from the opening in which a hand would ordinarily be inserted. His limbs stuck out through the 4 frayed holes, and the empty woolen finger and thumb dragged behind him. A coin swung from a string around his neck. A little bag of travel positions hung at his side. A matchbox was slung on his back, and it rattled with a stock of herbs, medicinal sundries, charms, and amulets as he hopped through the winter, alone of his kind, while all the world's frogs slept safely in the mud. "Good evening," he said as Ralphie came toward him with the mouse and his child. The frog's golden eyes took on red glints from the fires as he fixed upon father and son a look of profound and penetrating observation. "What fortune awaits you?" he boomed. "The frog lifts the veil that hides the future, credit given on favorable readings." "Listen," said Ralphie. "You sold me a charm last summer." "Ah," said the frog, "I remember. It was a herb called High John the Conqueror, for success in love." "Well, it didn't work," said Ralphie. "I rubbed it all over me like you said, and it gave me such a smell that the girls I was after ran off with another rat." "Which proves that she was the wrong girl for you," said the frog. "That is one of the charm's wondrous properties. It shows which love is true and which is false. Come, let me tell your fortune, no charge." Ralphie held out a paw, and Frog looked at it. "Ah," he said. His eyes flashed red and gold as he stared from the rat's paw into his face. "What do you see?" said Ralphie. "A journey," said the frog, having noted the bag carried by the mouse and his child. "A long journey." "You're wrong there," said Ralphie. "It's a short one." "One never knows about journeys," said Frog. "It may seem long." "What else?" said Ralphie, and he smacked his lips as he thought of a treacle brittle. "There'll be good eating," said Frog. "I see that very definitely." "Tell our fortune," said the mouse child. "Wind-ups don't have no fortunes to tell," said Ralphie. "Not so," said the frog. "The future is impartial, and fortune smiles on whom she will." He bent close to the child. "Tell me," he said, "what do you want from the future?" "I want to find the elephant," said the child. "I want her to be my mamma, and I want the seal to be my sister, and I want us all to live in the beautiful house." "Good heavens!" exclaimed the father. This was the first he had heard of the elephant and the seal and the doll house since they left the store 5 years ago. "Let us see what time will bring," said Frog. "As your palm is not accessible for me to read, I shall use an ancient form of divination that was taught me by an oriental mantis." Ralphie, well content to put off his errand at the bank, watched with interest as the frog unslung the matchbox from his back and took out a handful of sunflower seeds. Then he removed from his neck the coin that hung there, and tossing it and the seeds together, watched them fall to the snow. "Now," he said, as he wound up the father, "you must walk through the design." 3 times, directed on different angles by the fortune-teller, the father and son walked through the seeds and changed their random pattern in the snow. Then, squatting heavy and still, Frog examined the disposition of coin and seed, staring concentratedly at their new arrangement, while above him the floating red smoke of the trash fires intermittently obscured the stars. Ralphie leaned close, watching intently, and the mouse and his child, unwound, waited. The frog, as far as he knew himself, had never accurately predicted the future in his entire life. He told fortunes for profit, just as he sold charms and cures, surveyed territories, and performed weddings. The weddings at least were legal, since he was a legitimate justice of the peace. The surveys were more or less exact. The cures occasionally healed, the charms worked as hard as their wearers, and in the matter of fortunes he had learned long ago to say whatever best suited the occasion and the customer. The mouse child wanted a family and a house, and Frog desired to please him. Therefore he went through the motions of the oriental divination, preparing the while to see in the future a mamma, a sister, and a beautiful house. So the frog intended, but as he looked upon the coin and the seeds he had found himself unable to speak the word he had planned. He had practiced the seed and coin oracle many times, but never before had he experienced anything like that was happening to him now. All else beyond the pattern in the snow departed from his vision. His ears hummed and other sounds vanished. leaving him alone with the voice in his mind and the dark seeds dancing in the stillness of their mystic changes. "You have broken the circle," he said, "and a straight line of great force emerges. Follow it." "Where?" asked the father. Frog traced a line from the seed to seed and made an up and down gesture. "Depths and heights," he said, "and the bottom is strangely close to the top." He paused. "The road is long," he said, "and very hard." "But where does the road take us?" asked the child. Frog started harder at the seeds, his golden eyes unfathomable. His yellow throat swelled, gleaming in the opening of the ragged glove. He seemed to grow large and remote in the starlight, and his voice was distant when he spoke. "Low in the dark of a summer, high in the winter light, a painful spring, a shattering fall, a scattering regathered. The enemy you flee at the beginning awaits you at the end." The words stopped, and the voice went quivering into silence. The child began to cry. "That isn't too much to look forward to, is it?" said the father. "Can't you tell us more than that?" "No," said the frog, "nor can I even read the meaning of the words I spoke." Now that was the words had gone from him, he seemed smaller, nervous, and uneasy. There was silence for a moment. The rat, the frog, and the mouse and his child, lit by the sudden flaring of the flames below, stood out sharply against the darkness, motionless on Tin Can Slope. "Let's go," said Ralphie, shivering as if he felt the chill of winter for the first time. "Let's get to where we're going." He wound up the father, and they started on their way out of the dump, into the dark fields beyond it. Behind them, the narrow path, the frog picked up the coins and the seeds and watched them out of sight. In the beer can avenue and battered wind-ups of the forage squad stood in lane signs where they had stopped, and while their master paced among them thinking treacle-brittle thoughts, the sky had clouded over again, and Manny Rat felt better with the stars out of sight. He looked toward the fires beyond the rubbish mountains and sniffed the smoke complacently. Then, humming a little tune, he passed through the ranks of the silent slaves and went up to look for the wind-up Ralphie had told him about. He found her near the wreckage of a bridge table, close to the highway. The purple headcloth had gone, her grey plush was black with rot. One eye and one ear were missing, but still the elephant maintained an air of monumental dignity. How she had suffered, she who had thought herself a lady of property, secure in her high place. She had been sold like any common toy, while the gentlemen and ladies in the doll-house never so much as looked up from their teacups. The house itself, her house, as she always had believed, had been cut off abruptly from her sight as the tissue paper closed about her head, and thus her world departed and reality was thrust upon her. She had been taken to a house much grander than the one on the counter, and there she had endured what toys endured. She had been smeared with jam and worried by the dog, and she had been sat upon and she had been dropped. She had been made to pull wagons, and had been shot at by toy cannons, and had been left out in the rain until her works had rusted fast and she was thrown away. Still she endured, and deep within her tin blazed a spirit that would not be quenched. Though the heavens should fall, she knew that justice one day would be done. That day, and that day only, was the day she lived for, to pace again with a swinging trunk beside the windows of the mansion that was hers, to know again the stately mode of life that was due. In the meantime, here was a rat to be encountered, and he should be confronted firmly, as she had met all adversity thus far. "Good evening, madam," said Manny Rat. "Do we find ourselves quite worn out and thrown away? Do we lie here, lonely in the wintry waste, and rot? The pity of it!" The elephant said nothing. "Be of good cheer," said Manny Rat. "Rejoice, help is at hand." Still the elephant preserved her silence. "Surely you can speak," said Manny Rat. "You have heard the striking of the town hall clock, and the hour is long past midnight." "We have not been introduced," murmured the elephant, almost inaudibly. She hoped to create the illusion that her words had not actually come from her. "Ah, but we shall be," said Manny Rat. "We shall be moreover, close friends and intimate associates." He tried the elephant's key, but it would not turn. The spring was tightly wound and thick with rust. "What better introduction could there be," he said, "than to take you apart and repair you so you can work for me?" He produced a rusty beer can opener from within his robe and undid tin clasps that held the elephant together. "Nothing more to say, madam?" he asked as he pried apart the two halves of the tin body. "Not so much of how do you do?" But the elephant was silent. She had fainted. "Well, goodness me, I'm... Well, I'm not satisfied with how this story ended tonight, so I'm going to read another bit on, and you're going to get two again, because I don't like ending on a sad note. I love you, Christy. I'll talk to you in a second.